Hello, my name is Corey Napolitano, and it's my honor and privilege to get to speak to you today. This speech is supposed to be about my life and how God has impacted it. But I'm gonna try to show you how living with cerebral palsy and being legally blind has been more of a blessing than I could have ever expected. Now let's get the elephant out of the room early. I did say I'm legally blind, and what that means is for you in the third row and back, y'all can fall asleep because I won't be able to see you. But I will caution y'all, my hearing is above average, so if you snore, I will hear it. But what does having cerebral palsy mean? Well, to be honest guys, it differs from person to person. But for me it means my breathing patterns are heavily affected, and my muscles tend to have a mind of their own sometimes. But I am jacked, and if you've ever seen pictures of me at the beach, you'll understand what I mean by that. Now, let me tell you 3 stories that I think best encapsulate God's impact on my life. The first one happened when I was in college. See, in high school, I was a very shy kid. I didn't have many friends or a desire to even talk to people about what made me different. But in college, that all changed because I made some friends that pulled me aside early on in my college career and told me, I don't care who you are, I don't care what makes you different, I'm gonna treat you like I treat anybody else. And our love language, so to speak, became insulting each other. And to y'all in the audience, you may not understand why that meant so much to me. But to me, that was the first sign that I was accepted. I was no different than anybody else. But that was just the beginning of what God is doing. For the next one, you have to take a trip with me as I go to chapel one unassuming Tuesday. See, the fun part about being in a wheelchair is your mortal enemy is stairs. So they put stairs going down to a chapel location, and I had to go look for an elevator. Well, as it says in the Bible, God's plan for that was perfect too, because that was where I ended up meeting my very best friend in the entire world, and the person who, without hesitation, will drive me to Georgia for a concert, or drive me halfway across the state to make a social media video. See, if God was not in my life, I don't think that moment would mean much to me. That would have just been another moment of me meeting a friend and not recognizing the significance of it. But instead, God tapped me on the shoulder and was like, I'm going to use this moment. And you're going to look back on it 10 years from now and be grateful. The next moment, we have to fast forward to after my college graduation. See, I was going to go into divinity school and study to become a minister, because talking about God is one thing that I've always been told I'm very good at. So I figured the next logical step was to get a piece of paper that told me I was good at it. But that's when God threw the second curveball. See, I had just finished up writing the essay to get accepted in. And it turns out I was. The essay was wonderful. All that was left to do was pay the money to Lipscomb University, and I would have been in. But I had to go to the doctor first. Now, I was no stranger to doctor's appointments. I've had them all my life. To me, this was just another routine one. But unbeknownst to me, it was the doctor's appointment that would change my life forever. See, I had been steadily developing scoliosis. And it turns out that if I didn't get back surgery in the next 6 months, my organs would fail and I would obviously not be able to live the life I wanted. So, I had a decision to make. Forgo divinity school and get my back fixed, or go to divinity school and roll the dice. See, I was a 22-year-old kid. I hadn't made decisions like that before. But with the consultation of my family and my friends, we decided that divinity school could wait, and I needed to get the surgery. But this is the third time that God did something really cool. See, my scoliosis was pronounced. It was a 56-degree S-curve, which means I leaned tremendously to the left. The doctor told me, yeah, we can only correct this 30 degrees, but that's where God stepped in and said, watch what I can do. After a 10-hour surgery where they basically had to break my back and rebuild it, the curve was down to 1 degree. And I was left stunned and thanking God. See, that's the funny thing about life, is when you think you've got it all figured out, God will take you and do something that even the most devout Christian would look at and go, wow. But it was during the recovery of the back surgery that one of my friends said, hey, you've been getting through the surgery and recovery with humor And Hart, have you ever thought about doing a stand-up comedy? And I looked at him dead in the eye and said, I would stink at stand-up comedy because I can't stand up. After minutes of giggling and realizing that that actually would be a wonderful joke for my first stand-up gig, we decided that after I was fully recovered, he would drive me down to my first stand-up gig. And consistently, guys, I was one of the top 3 at the venue. And I'm like, this is wonderful. I'm gonna continue to do this for the next 2 years, see where it goes, and just let God lead. And then COVID happened. And then that's where God threw me the best curveball to date. See, I was sitting at home watching the news about 2 weeks after lockdown. And I was just so disappointed by how negative the news was that I just couldn't handle it anymore. That was when I got a phone call from 2 more friends that said, hey, you need to give this TikTok thing a try. And I'm like, I'll be lucky if I get 100 followers by the end of the month. And they convinced me after going back and forth for a little while to give it a shot. And I posted my first video, and to date I have 250,000 followers. See, that's the funny thing about God. It's the funny thing about life in general, is you think you got it all figured out. You think you're gonna marry your high school sweetheart. You think you're gonna have this big house with the pool and the backyard. But that's when God taps you on the shoulder and says, trust me, I know better. Guys, I may be up here because I just got lucky and I've been put in situations where people have connections. But I truly believe that y'all can be up here too. My story is not the only story that God has touched. Y'all have a story that is wholly unique and that deserves to be told. So my challenge to you is 3 things. 1, stop. Stop worrying about what the next 5 years is going to hold. And let God guide you. The second is, once you let God guide your life, learn to say yes to some things that you would otherwise say no to. And the third and final thing is just go and interact with people that you wouldn't normally interact with and see what God does with it. If you do those 3 things on top of smile every day, then I know that God's story for you will be one for the record books. God bless you all, and thank you so much.